Hey, it's Wednesday. Today I'm going to be doing the final step of the dye process for the yarn for my Ursa, and I'm super excited, and then I'll be able to reveal it to you. Aw, yeah.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, and the people that I love are getting farther away. They say distance makes the heart grow stronger. Well, I've been holding on, but it gets harder each day. When there's nothing I can do, always a phone call or a postcard away from you. Only numbers, only lines on a map, and we're so far from one another, but it won't hold us back, no. My heart's not pumping blood, my heart is pumping iron, my heart's getting tough. It gets stronger every day, but it's still not enough to fight.
Hey, I'm Mackenzie, also known as Emtothethird on Instagram, Ravelry, and now YouTube. And today is the day of the Ursa sweater yarn reveal. I've been super teasing on Instagram, but I'm really excited about this color. And I really hope that you all also like it and think that the suspense wasn't like killing you. So I did want to talk a little bit about like why I chose this color. And talk a little bit about the dyeing process. It's so difficult to get the same color repeated. And this is something that like all natural dyers that, you know, I've known and interacted with have talked about. Like it is so hard to predict what people will get even if you're using the same even if you're using the same amount of water, the water source might be different. Even if you're using the same dye stuff from the same company, it could be a different batch, and different amounts of water can influence the plants and how much color they have. Like there are so many variables to take into account. But there are ways to kind of narrow it down and, you know, get as close to a laboratory setting as possible. I say that with like a clear caveat, but so that's what's really fascinated me about natural dyeing, and, you know, things that I would, you know, I'd be like, oh, well, this should give me a similar or the same result, you know, would totally be not the same. And, you know, it just really, I found it really fascinating. This sweater is, yarn that I naturally dyed. This base color is a mixture of like a liquid indigo that can be used very similar to other dye extracts, so that it doesn't have to be created into a vat, and you can just put it in a pot of water and dye your yarn into it, which is really cool. And then I use some madder and some black walnuts for the ribbing here. So I really like this cardigan. It's the Palmetto cardigan. I am surprised by how much I kind of feel like a band conductor with these shoulders though. I don't know if it's because of how much of a contrast it is, but crew neck cardigans are like what I wear all the time. So you know, and this was a little fun, and so this is kind of my uniform that I wear for when I do shows, which I think is a great time to wear it. So I wanted to wear this because the color that I chose is sort of related to it. So when I first started doing, so let me backtrack. I try and keep a very careful record of dyeing yarn, and that's because it just eliminates any questions that I have, and sometimes I do a better job than others. But I have a couple of journals that I've been keeping. I keep samples of the yarn that I dye, and I keep as detailed notes as I possibly can. So I created this little dye data sheet in here. And then I try and keep samples, and if I don't have samples, like in here, like this is for the sweater I'm wearing. And then I'll also have notes about like what was going on during that time, so it's kind of just a little personal, you know, journal. And this is my older one that I had. So when I was first starting out, I did a lot of just like this is the percentage of dye and the afterbath of the dye, and these are the skeins that I get, or the colors that I get. And I did that with the liquid indigo that I was talking about, which is also known as Saxon Blue. I get that from Botanical Colors, and this is what that looks like. So it's not the traditional like deep navy kind of indigo. It's more of like a teal base. So you can kind of add a little bit, you can add less of the dye, add a little bit of yellow, you get this beautiful teal. You can add logwood, kind of get a periwinkle. And so this is what that, like the amount that I did in liquid form, as opposed to weight, I do it by like teaspoon or tablespoon. I wanted to get kind of an indigo, more of a traditional like that indigo color, and I thought that if I mixed it with logwood, which is like traditionally a purple, then I would get that. So I have two options. So I did it two different ways. One, which is this color, and the color that I'm wearing on this cardigan, it's a little bit different, but it's the same dye process. When I was making the dye bath, I mixed the amount of the Saxon Blue per weight with the percentage of the logwood dye, and I put them in a little mixing like cup beaker, and I added hot water to dissolve the dyes, and then I added that to the dye bath, and then I put in my white mordanted yarn, and this is the color that I got, which is beautiful. It's like, you know, there's some variation in the skein. And that, again, is what I use to really dye the cardigan that I'm wearing. And I, again, love that color, but it wasn't exactly what I was going for. And the reason I was going for something different and what I was expecting was different was because I had previously taken the other skein that I dyed with this one. So I dyed two of these at the same time. Once it was dried and done, I took one of them and I over dyed it with logwood. So in a separate step, I over dyed it, and this is the color I got. You can see that in comparison, it's much like richer, and it might not look like much, but I promise you, it is much more like a navy blue. And so what I wanted to do was really, you know, first of all, I was doubting myself, and I was like, well, maybe I didn't put the right percentage, and maybe that's why it turned out so different. Like, I wasn't sure that over dyeing versus mixing the two dyes together would make that big of a difference, but in this case it did. I would say, I don't know for sure that it's going to do the same thing in every case, but in this case it definitely did. And the reason I am telling you all of this is because that last color is what I was hoping for with the Ursa. I knew it would be a little bit different, and I knew that because the yarn I started off with, if you remember, was a natural gray color as opposed to a white, so I knew that was going to influence it. But here is the final batch of color. So, as you can see, and the reason I wore this cardigan was so that you could see the difference between the two colors. This is much more like a navy kind of indigo blue. Not quite as like bright as I would say like a lot of that dyes end up being. But I really love the way this color turned out. I'm really excited. I don't wear a lot of blue. I've been kind of getting into it more. I've been having like a blue and white gingham moment. But yeah, man, I'm really excited about it. It's so gorgeous. It turned out, I was getting a little nervous, but it really turned out there's like definitely some variation in the color. Let me wind it into a skein. But it's gonna be this chunky, really pretty sweater, man. Look at that. Yeah, super pretty. If you want to check out the yarn and have questions about the yarn that I dyed, you can check out my previous video, my previous making vlog. I'll link that below. And yeah, I'm really excited. And so the other exciting thing is that Zoe and I, my friend who is going to be knitting the Ursa with me, she is not a knitter, but she just knit her first sweater and it's turned out amazing. When I was in Portland, Oregon earlier this spring, I helped her pick out yarn and sort of guided her through the steps, but she did a great job. Her company is Junebug in Darlin, and they make amazing queer feminist cross-stitch kits. Her designs are beautiful. And so we're gonna be knitting the Ursa together, and we're gonna be doing a cast-on party together on Instagram Live. So stay tuned. I'll have more info about that, like when it's gonna happen. I'm not sure when she's getting her yarn. I know that I need to swatch first. I'm really excited. Okay, well, I'll talk to you soon.